I didn't have a happy childhood. My parents divorced when I was 12 years old, and it all came as a huge shock to me. My father was very grumpy. I always tried to be good and obedient, but he still blamed me a lot. This psychological torture made me feel helpless and sad. My mom was a gentle housewife. I often saw my mom enduring my father's anger in silence. After the divorce, my mom and I moved to a small apartment, and our life became even more difficult. I often wept silently at night. I was also lonely at school. Due to the instability of my family, I became introverted and was not good at communicating with my classmates. As time went by, I gradually became stronger. I learned to accept myself. I realized that an unfortunate childhood would not determine my future and that I could choose my own path to become a better person. Unfortunately, when I was 24 years old, I developed pulmonary fibrosis. Due to the effects of pulmonary fibrosis, I often suffered from hypoxemia. One night, shortly after I fell asleep, I felt like I was suffocating. I felt like my nose was completely blocked and I couldn't get enough oxygen. I tried to open my mouth to get more air, but realized that I could not open my mouth freely either. I was in utter despair and felt that my breathing was stopping. In a matter of minutes, grayness enveloped my vision and the world around me gradually blurred. As my breathing stopped, my brain gradually lost energy and my thinking became slow. It was the most terrifying moment of my life, and that fear of death was unforgettable. After a while, my mind became clear, and all my previous fears disappeared. Above my head, a tunnel appeared. I didn't know what was happening. I was caught up in this mysterious tunnel. The walls of the tunnel were gray. The tunnel shimmered with golden light, like fireflies in the night. The sight mesmerized me and made me feel a peace I had never felt before. I felt the joy within me, as if I was moving in the right direction. I realized that my body had now lost its meaning to me. It was just an empty shell without a soul. It was only when I got rid of this body that I would be truly free. At the end of the tunnel, there was a bright light which seemed to beckon me forward, drawing me forward. In the tunnel, I was open to it all because I believed this was my moment to come home. I no longer felt alone, but filled with the desire to go home. Though I had stopped breathing, a marvelous strength filled me. I knew this was not the end, but the beginning of a new life. I thought I could go straight into that light, but before I did, I was stopped by a transparent wall. The wall seemed to be an invisible barrier that prevented me from moving on. I touched the transparent wall in front of me and it confused and frustrated me. Around the tunnel, I also saw many souls. They had no clear destination, just like robots. Looking at these mindless souls, I felt an inexplicable sadness, as if my mind resonated with them. They had no emotions or consciousness, as if they were living in a kind of illusory dream. Then I noticed a blurry figure to my left. I couldn't make out his face, but I could see that he was wearing a denim jacket and a cowboy hat. This mysterious person told me that I shouldn't talk to those spirits because they weren't going to pay any attention to me. They had lost their sense of self and were just moving around mechanically in this unreal world. I didn't understand why I was in this tunnel and why I couldn't reach the place of light at the other end. My heart was filled with doubts and I didn't know what would happen next. I began to feel at a loss in this unfamiliar situation, hoping to find answers. It was at this time that I heard a man's voice. He told me not to try to cross the wall in front of me because my mission was not yet complete. This voice was filled with love and concern. This intense love was like nothing I had ever experienced before, and it warmed my heart. Looking back on my upbringing, I suffered abuse from my father as a child. My father often called me a useless piece of trash. And the physical abuse caused me unbearable pain. I longed to be his proud child, but that was not the case, and he was not happy with me. This love came so suddenly that it shocked and delighted me. The mysterious man who was not my father conveyed strong emotions to me. He was willing to share this pain for me. In this moment, it was as if I felt understood and accepted. This man's voice taught me to face my past hurts and let go of the resentments in my heart. This call of love made me feel recognized and no longer a waste to be denied. The man continued to tell me that you can hang in there and everything will be okay. His words warmed my broken heart. Whenever I recall this scene, tears flow uncontrollably. It was as if his words had a magical power that made me feel strong and courageous inside. I was no longer afraid because I had him by my side. Then he told me it was time to go back. I resisted very much. I didn't want to leave him. I wanted to stay here forever and enjoy the love and care. But he gave me a reason why I had to go back, and I can't remember the specifics of that conversation. I began to realize that I couldn't stay here forever. I had unfinished business and a reality to face. I felt myself being pulled back into my body. It was a wonderful feeling, like my soul was slowly returning to its vessel. The next morning, I woke up to find myself in a hospital bed. I looked out the window and was surprised to see Jesus. He was watching me with a smile on his face, and I was filled with gratitude and amazement. He was dressed in a white robe that radiated a divine light. His hair was brown, and his eyes were full of wisdom, as if they could see into every thought of my heart. His smile was full of love and forgiveness, giving me a feeling of endless warmth. There was a strong lion by his side. This lion exuded majesty. Its fur was golden yellow, and each mane glowed brightly. Its eyes were very bright, like two shining stars. There seemed to be a special bond between the lion and Jesus. And it looked at him with a look of loyalty. Jesus and the lion looked at me together. It was as if I understood that this lion symbolized courage and strength, and that it was the guardian that Jesus had given me. The presence of Jesus and this lion made me realize that I was not alone, I had them with me. "Thank you all," I whispered. Jesus smiled and nodded. Jesus hugged me gently. His palms patted my back as if to soothe my heart. "Don't be afraid," he said gently. "You will never be alone. I will always be with you." The lion whispered and hissed back at me, as if to assure me that I would have his watchful eye. At this time, my mother walked into the hospital room. Immediately, I asked the mother next to me, "Do you see Jesus outside the window?" However, she did not see anything and thought I was hallucinating. My mother reminded me to get some rest. But I believed that the Jesus outside the window was real. After this experience, I began to pray to God frequently. I hoped that He would help me forget this paradoxical experience so that I could return to my normal life. This memory made my desire to go home even stronger. The warmth of that place was too tempting for me, making me long to return there and seek inner peace. In the months that passed, I began to become more and more negative. This put me in deep pain. Depression gripped my mind and I prayed every day for God to take me home, but received no response. I felt isolated and abandoned. Although I realized that I could not see God by committing suicide, I was still in extreme pain. I gradually realized that there was no avoiding the difficulties in life, and that I had to find ways to cope with them. Thus, I began to constantly adjust my mindset and learn to accept my inner pain. In the next 2 years, I kept learning and trying to find ways to redeem myself. I made life rich and kept exploring new possibilities. Most importantly, I gradually realized the joy of helping others. I realized that God might have given me a mission to help people release their fear of death, so that they would understand that death is just a gateway to a better life and does not need to be feared. So I began to help those who felt lost and afraid. I bravely shared my experiences with them, hoping to give them some insight and help through my story. I told them that death is not scary, it is the beginning of another unknown world. I hope to give them courage and strength with my experience. In the process, I gradually found my self-worth. Helping others gives me a sense of inner peace and fulfillment. I know I am not alone. I want to keep going and use my experience to influence more people to feel the beauty of life.